Hello, everyone. I am getting back into album reviews, and I wasn't originally planning to cover this project, but because I want to get back into it, covering the pop girls, this is the first album that is the forefront of what's just recently dropped. So I want to share some thoughts on the new Jennifer Lopez album, This Is Me Now, which just came out this past Friday, as well as the movie musical called This Is Me Now, A Love Story. And I will share my thoughts on the film, which I have seen, and the album, and some of the discourse that I've been seeing around J.Lo on the Twitter streets. But, this isn't going to be as crazy of a deep dive lyrically as I've done for some other artists. For some of the more mainstream pop divas, the lyricism not as deep. So there's not as much to mine. But that's not to dislight the heart on the sleeve lyricism and effort that was put into this project. You can really tell that Jennifer had a lot she wanted to say. It has been 10 years since her last real official studio album. She released an album that was kind of more of a soundtrack for her movie Marry Me in 2022. It had Maluma and her co-starring, and she did a lot of duets with him. So she was kind of that. That's not really a J.Lo album, though. A classic J.Lo album we have not gotten in 10 years. And that's pretty wild. But she is in her mid 50s. She's reaching that age where it's common for these pop stars to start to kind of, take longer and longer hiatuses. In fact, she's hinted at this very likely being her last ever studio album. I don't know if that's necessarily true, although I do think she'd probably do more soundtrack album type stuff, like for films that she's starring in. I definitely think that Jennifer Lopez is a stronger actress than she is a singer, though I think she is a really, really top-notch performer, and I don't like necessarily seeing people slight her for that. Understandably, Jennifer is not a vocalist. She is definitely a competent singer. I think she can carry a tune, but she is not a Mariah Carey. She is not a Celine Dion. She is not a Beyonce. We know this, okay? There are tons of pop savants, pop superstars who are not vocalists. Madonna, Kylie Minogue, Selena Gomez. I mean, even Rihanna, like, I'm sorry. I hope I'm not going to get some people. I mean, even Taylor Swift, to a certain degree, is not entirely a vocalist. It's okay. They still can be amazing pop stars and shine in the best areas of their expertise, performing, dance, knowing which producers to get on the phone with. For Jennifer, it is definitely dance. It is definitely, putting on a show. And it is definitely, again, having an ear for hooks. I think that people really, no, people don't give J.Lo enough flowers for having a great ear for what is such a hit song. On the Floor was her last huge mega hit, and that was over a decade ago. And she has had a hard time connecting since. She actually did put out quite a few songs in the late 2010s in Spanish. She was teasing at the time a Spanish language album, which would have been a follow-up to her 2007 album, Como Ama un Mujer. But that never materialized, and it is a shame that it never did. I was really looking forward to that. But we got a lot of up-tempo Latin tracks, and, some people were like, J.Lo's kind of fake Spanish. She's from the Bronx. She's Puerto Rican by ancestry, but she's very white, kind of vanilla. There are Latin artists that are a little more authentic with their, Hispanic heritage. And so I think J.Lo is not backing down to the hate, but I think she felt like maybe going back into the English language R&B 2000s pop style was just more her lane. And so here we are with This Is Me Now. This album is called This Is Me Now because of her 2002 album, This Is Me Then. I think it's really interesting, and I talk about this in my 2024 predictions video, how she released an album back in 2002 with that title, as if she knew that in the future she would make an album called This Is Me Now. Because I feel like This Is Me Then is an awkward and kind of clumsy title. It's like, This Is Me Then. What? This Is Me Then? Like, back then? Or were you talking about in the current moment? Because it seemed like at the time that was what you were referring to. This is me now back in 2002, but you didn't call it that. You called it This Is Me Then, as if to perfectly set up 20 years later, This Is Me Now. It seemed like a perfect plan. I don't know if she necessarily planned it that way. The reason this whole album came together and why she titled it this is all to do with Ben Affleck. She got back together with him after 20 years. And to be honest with you, I have no stake in the Bennifer Hollywood elite couple kind of matchmaking hoo ha. I don't give two hoots about whether J.Lo and Ben are soulmates and if they ever break up. I'm just not invested in that romance. I'm happy for them. I'm happy for them. I hope they stay the course because, you know, J.Lo's had a rough time of it with marriage. She talks about that a lot on this record. She's been married 4 times and she, you know, it's rough. It's rough. You know, a lot of us, and this is a theme for the movie, feel like she just can't catch a break with love, and that's what she's exploring on this record. This record and this film is an exploration of like truly realizing that if you stop searching so hard for something, that's when the universe will actually maybe bless you with what you're actually looking for. Because in the film, it sets it up to be like she's just going through men like hotcakes, never settling down, never quite finding the right spark. And her friends are saying she's too idealistic. She's too caught up in this fairy tale romance that she's had ever since she was a child. In the film, she uses this story, this Puerto Rican legend about Alida and Teru, 2 star-crossed lovers who are forbidden to be together, are transformed into red flowers and a hummingbird. And the hummingbird is used as a symbol to represent not only her heart in its search for love, but also her mother, as well as a divine sort of intervention from God. So there's a lot of self-exploration through this metaphor and this fairy tale and this imbued into the story, which, you know, I found really endearing. I found it, you know, for a Jennifer Lopez story, I found it heartfelt. Not very deep, but very heartfelt. Now, she announced this album back on the 20th anniversary of This Is Me Then, back in 2022, and we all thought this album was going to be coming out imminently. Well, it didn't end up coming out until 14 months later, 15 months later. But, you know, I think that had to do with the fact that she decided to make this a movie. That was sort of like, I've recorded the album and now I realize there's more to this story. I can't just do 1 or 2 music videos. I've got to make this a whole thing. Although she explains it's not really like a full musical. It's not also like a full feature-length film. It's only an hour. I was expecting it to be longer. It does not feature every song on the album, which I think is good because not all the songs on this album are worthy of visuals. If we're going to talk about a visual album, not every album is Lemonade. Not every album is Lemonade. And look, we're going to talk about the sonics first. Let's talk about this record. We've got 13 tracks here. It is a solid mid-2000s, early 2000s, Latin-tinged pop R&B album. There is something for old school J.Lo fans here that I think are, for the most part, what everyone's checking for her. I think it's really refreshing to hear her not chasing such a modern sound. You know, in the 2010s, she got really caught up in the sort of electronic dance music craze and trying to do super EDM, dubstep stuff. The Love album just feels so inauthentic for that reason. And then it kind of carried over into what she was doing on AKA. Everything just felt like it was trying so hard to be a hit on the radio for maybe a year or 2 before the album actually came out. And so it had that problem that Madonna started to have as well with some of her 2010s records. And so it's so refreshing to hear J.Lo put out an album that would have been 100% way much more at home in the early 2000s than it would in 2024. Melodic R&B is just something I think J.Lo is so well suited for. And this album has a really great sampling for everyone in terms of what you could expect from a J.Lo record. It's a lot of bops. It's a lot of up-tempo, mid-tempo kind of jams. But there are some really emoteful ballads. I was really blown away by Broken Like Me. I think that might be the highlight song on this record, actually. Although I think seeing the film made me like the song more. I was very touched. It reminded me of some of the ballads off of her Spanish 2007 album, which I think are some of her most heartfelt ballads she's ever made. Her most emotionally stirring. The melody is really stirring, and the lyrics are really probing. There's some serious vulnerability on display. And so I really give her a lot of props for making an album that is so much better than Twitter is saying. And I think a lot of the Twitter haters have never even listened to it. It is not groundbreaking, but it's not a renaissance, but it is definitely not. I would argue, look, this is unpopular, but I think it's better than Mariah Carey's last album. Caution didn't do that much for me. It was a little too much, again, Mariah trying to keep up with trap and hip hop of current days, with missing a little bit of what Mariah's R&B style was so well known for. There are songs I like on Caution, but overall, I think I might actually prefer This Is Me Now, just a smidge. I know that's going to upset so many Mariah Carey fans because they seem to be the ones who are really coming for J.Lo. Shakira as well. But look, this isn't meant to be a competition. And like I said, J.Lo's never claimed to be a phenomenal vocalist. She's a sweet, humble, hardworking woman. And I don't know. I don't get the controversy. I don't get the hate. Granted, I haven't been following this woman's career with a microscope. So I don't know, maybe she did something problematic like 10 years ago and she's never been able to live it down. But for some reason, people were just like, we don't want a J.Lo record. It's like, I kind of do. It's been a while, and this looks really interesting. So what are the other highlight songs here? I would say Hearts and Flowers. It's definitely a callback to I'm Real, and it almost sounds like that's what she's saying in the chorus when she says I'm still. I mean, it's a song for intense choreography, and that's what's served in the music video, but it's a bop. I enjoy Midnight Trip to Vegas. It's just so light on its feet. I love the harp instrumental. I can't get enough of Can't Get Enough. I mean, it is certainly nothing special. It feels like something that could have easily come off of, again, any of her first three albums, or also maybe Brave, which is an underrated record from her. Brave is sort of her last album that sounds anything like what this is, from 2007. And then This Is Me Now, the title track. I do think the melody is trying so hard to be overdramatic that it comes off a little, a little forced. And it's definitely a song that for someone who's maybe not the best vocalist, you have to be careful because you don't want to set yourself up on stage. And This Is Me Now is a song that, perhaps is a little out of Jennifer's range. The performance on SNL was fine. I didn't think it was, egregious by any means. She had an okay night vocally, but she definitely was picking, she's better suited with songs like Hearts and Flowers, where it's a little lower register, it's very rhythmic, and she can sort of sing/rap, and it just works better with her type of singing. And then Broken Like Me, I also think, allows her to showcase what makes her voice strong in a way that's not making her sound like she's trying to do a Christina Aguilera belt. So yeah, Broken Like Me, those are the highlights. I think the skips for me on the record are definitely not going anywhere. Mad Love and To Be Yours. Interestingly, neither of those songs appear at all, even in small instrumentals on the entire This Is Me Now film. And I was really happy to see that because I was thinking, let's do the best of the best. We don't need to make a video for all these songs. The This Is Me Now film, I'm not going to break down the whole thing, but let me just say, if you haven't watched it, it's only an hour. It goes by pretty fast. If you find some of these songs to be bops on the records, like the ones I just mentioned, do you want to see interesting choreography? Watch the music videos. Watch the whole movie. Because there is some bonkers choreography that I thought was pretty creative. Now, it is an absolute bonkers film. This is J.Lo having so much money and such a high budget, even though she financed most of this herself, and going balls to the wall, with all these creative decisions that are a little questionable. Dave Meyers is the director, but you could tell that it was really Jennifer Lopez in the director's chair. I think it was very evident that this was her project. He was just moving the cameras around, instructing the cameras. There's some really, really interesting and funny cameos, though I will say someone pointed out on Twitter it felt a little bit like a Super Bowl commercial for insurance when we saw Jane Fonda, Jennifer Lewis, Trevor Noah, Sofia Vergara stealing the show. Not very many lines, but stealing the show. Post Malone, Kiki Palmer, Kim Petras, goodness gracious, Neil deGrasse Tyson. What a lineup of guest stars, which, Jennifer admitted was kind of like a tall order to ask beyond the project because they were sort of like, but this isn't a movie, but this isn't a music video. What are you doing for Amazon? Um, and but hey, I mean, it draws viewers in. It kept me entertained. I think the idea of having them all represent different star signs in this zodiacal council is the most Jennifer Lopez idea ever. But it's the most white, middle aged wine mom idea, I suppose you could say. I did see one person aptly point out that this was sort of lemonade or Renaissance for middle aged white women, and yeah, I see their point. But because I don't, astrology is very played out in that demographic. Let's just say this is coming from someone who's very open minded. I do think it's interesting. Where is Aquarius and Capricorn? They have every other star sign represented, but no Aquarius and Capricorn. I mean, I'm an Aries. I got represented. So I guess I'm not complaining, but it was just, okay, fuck their drag, I guess. Why not have all 12? You already had 10 of the signs represented, and some of them didn't have much screen time. Sophia was so funny. She was Cancer, I believe. And of course, it's all playing on this, idea of J.Lo being so caught up in star signs and compatibility, which is a minefield. That's not something that I think is healthy to get too caught up in, especially if you're really on the dating scene. Just let things organically match and don't put these preconceived kind of ideas on things. Um, but I will say a lot of the movie does kind of feel like Jennifer. It feels like Jennifer's primary occupation is going to therapy. What have you done today? I went to therapy. And she comes out of these lavish, over the top, futuristic glass mansions that are so garish and so outlandish that I would never want to live in. Um, very, very questionable how it's just absolutely bonkers, some of these mansions that she's just lounging around and watching, old films and pining away at past loves. There's definitely a Kardashian aesthetic and kind of conversation here about rich women in Hollywood, but bypassing all of that, there's some real heart to the story. It's about, connecting back with her inner child, her mother, and realizing that she don't need no man, that she's okay by herself. Of course, that leads to the hinting of her reuniting with Ben. It's only hinted at. I thought it would be made more of a bigger deal in the movie. It's only hinted at in the scenes of them riding that motorcycle. It opens the film with them riding, and then there's this, crash, and that's the breakup. And then it ends with her getting back on that bike. And Dear Ben Part 2, shout out to that song as well, because it definitely is a worthy follow-up to the original off of the This Is Me Then album. And melodically strong as well. Again, very, very quintessential 2000s R&B pop melodies here. I'm very impressed. I love all of the, the horns and the flutes that come in. There's like a very New York sound to like the opening track and the sort of jazzy horns and flutes that come in, as well as Can't Get Enough. Yeah, it's got New York vibes for sure. I think that it does what it needs to do for a J.Lo pop album in 2024. And I think the film I'm glad it's only an hour because I could only stomach an hour of it. It is not a phenomenal film. It's got weird pacing issues, jumpy camera work. It's very disjointed, but there's some real camp brilliance to it. And there's something so kind of refreshing about an artist just being this balls to the wall creative. I mean, this whole like factory of Jennifer fueling her own heart in the steampunk aesthetic. I mean, you don't really see, I don't know. You don't see the pop girls kind of doing that so much these days. It's very Lady Gaga. And so I appreciate her just going there. Shout out to Courtney Baxter. She is one of the executive producers. Actually worked with Jennifer on a lot of her recent Amazon movies. They're, from what I've heard, not very good. I haven't watched any of them. I went to high school with Courtney. She was in the grade below me, so I remember seeing her in the hallways. We went to the same church. So it's cool to see someone from my high school. We knew who she was. We knew she was going on to doing, she was already making a name for herself in Hollywood back in, when we were in high school. And so it's cool to see her, really plowing a career for herself as a film producer in Hollywood like this and working with J.Lo. It's pretty incredible. So I was really shocked and surprised, but happy to see that watching the credits. I was like, oh, someone from my high school. So all in all, those are my thoughts on the new J.Lo project. I thought I'd share them here. What are your thoughts? What are your favorite songs from the new record? Like I said, mine would definitely be Can't Get Enough, This Is Me Now, Broken Like Me. Hummingbird's pretty good. And Midnight Trip to Vegas. I would say those are my standouts. What are yours? Please give this a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new here for more album reviews. And I'll see you all in my next video. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. Peace, love, and light. Bye.